Womanjika everyone, Womanjika meaning welcome. My name is Auntie Julianne and I'm an elder of the Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung people, and in recognition of doing my welcome to country, I'd like to pay my respects to my elders past, present, future and any elders that were here today, and I would also like to welcome you all here today. The Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung tribe consists of three families, the Nevins, the Terricks and the Wandins, and I'm part of the Nevin family. The three families all descend from one woman called Annie Barratt, which makes us one big family. Annie Barratt is the youngest sister of William Barratt, a pioneer for Aboriginal people in the 19th century, fighting for equality and land rights. I'm here today to welcome you all to the land of my ancestors. We call the land within our tribal boundaries our country. The Kulin Nation, Kulin meaning man, is made up of 5 groups. They are the Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung, Boonwurrung, Tanarong, Wathaurong and Dja Dja Wurrung. And to give you an outline of the Wurundjeri country and the area we cover, Wurundjeri country extends from north to the Great Dividing Range, east to Mount Baw Baw, south to the Moretti Creek and west to the Werribee River. We cover a diverse range of land from the mountains to the beach and everything in between. Many thousands of years ago, if an Aboriginal person from another tribe wanted to cross our boundary, they would have to sit at the boundary and wait for the Narragadah, which is the headman, or an elder to come past to give permission to cross. Traditional Aboriginal culture was highly territorial, and visitors risked a violent reprisal for crossing a tribal or clan boundary without this permission, and this is how a welcome to country originated in our culture. Traditionally, being welcomed onto country meant you respected Bunjil's law. Bunjil the wedge-tailed eagle is our creator, and Wah the crow is our protector. And as long as you looked after the country, you had access to our waterways and our land resources. And when you enter our country, we ask that you respect our resources, our fauna, flora and water, as they are very special to us. And when you are ready to leave, we ask that you leave it the way you found it.
We have lots of council services that support our community. We support families with children, including health services for children and mums, vaccinations, playgroups, childcare, and kinder. We support young people in our community. Through events and activities, we have services that can support people with disability, older people, and carers and family of people with disability and older people. Our libraries support everyone in our community, help people learn new things, and are free to join. We support our community to have fun and be active through events and activities, sport, and recreation areas. We help look after our places and spaces, the environment, and local businesses. We have laws to keep people safe, to make sure buildings are safe, to make sure roads and footpaths are safe, to make sure our places and spaces are safe. We make sure everyone follows the law to keep our community safe and happy. Moonee Valley. It's a great place to live, work, and visit.
Woman Jika, everyone. Woman Jika meaning welcome. My name is Auntie Julianne, and I'm an out of the Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung people. And in recognition of doing my welcome to country, I'd like to pay my respects to my elders, past, present, future, and any elders that were here today. And I would also like to welcome you all here today. The Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung tribe consists of 3 families, the Nevins, the Terricks, and the Wandins, and I'm part of the Nevin family. The 3 families all descend from one woman called Annie Barratt, which makes us one big family. Annie Barratt is the youngest sister of William Barratt, a pioneer for Aboriginal people in the 19th century, fighting for equality and land rights. I'm here today to welcome you all to the land of my ancestors. We call the land within our tribal boundaries our country. The Kulin Nation, Kulin meaning man, is made up of 5 groups. They are the Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung, Boonwurrung, Tanarong, Wathaurong and Dja Dja Wurrung. And to give you an outline of the Wurundjeri country and the area we cover. Wurundjeri country extends from north to the Great Dividing Range, east to Mount Baw Baw, south to the Mooloolah Creek and west to the Werribee River. We cover a diverse range of land from the mountains to the beach and everything in between. Many thousands of years ago, if an Aboriginal person from another tribe wanted to cross our boundary, They would have to sit at the boundary and wait for the Narragaeta, which is the headman, or an elder to come past to give permission to cross. Traditional Aboriginal culture was highly territorial, and visitors risked a violent reprisal for crossing a tribal or clan boundary without this permission, and this is how a welcome to country originated in our culture. Traditionally, being welcomed onto country meant you respected Bunjil's law. Bunjil, the wedge-tailed eagle, is our creator, and Wah the crow is our protector. And as long as you looked after the country, you had access to our waterways and our land resources. And when you enter our country, we ask that you respect our resources, our fauna, flora and water, as they are very special to us. And when you are ready to leave, we ask that you leave it the way you found it.
We have lots of council services that support our community. We support families with children, including health services for children and mums, vaccinations, playgroups, childcare, and kinder. We support young people in our community. Through events and activities, we have services that can support people with disability, older people, and carers and family of people with disability and older people. Our libraries support everyone in our community, help people learn new things, and are free to join. We support our community to have fun and be active through events and activities, sport, and recreation areas. We help look after our places and spaces, the environment, and local businesses. We have laws to keep people safe, to make sure buildings are safe, to make sure roads and footpaths are safe, to make sure our places and spaces are safe. We make sure everyone follows the law to keep our community safe and happy. Moonee Valley. It's a great place to live, work, and visit.
Welcome everyone to the Council meeting of the 26th of May 2026, which I now declare open at 6:33pm. I'd like to warmly welcome members of the public who've joined us tonight, as well as those watching online. As well as being live streamed, the video recording of this meeting will also be available on our website, so attendees in the gallery are advised that your presence may be recorded. I'd also ask that mobile phones be switched to silent mode during the meeting. And a reminder to public in the gallery that hearing loops are available at the chamber entrance as per Governance Rule 75.1, personal video and audio recordings are not allowed. On behalf of Moonee Valley City Council, I respectfully acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which Moonee Valley is located, the Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung people of the Kulin Nation, and pay respects to spirits, ancestors, community members and elders past, present and emerging. We extend this respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples who may be present. As part of Council's commitment to reconciliation and treaty, particularly in Reconciliation Week, I'll now say our acknowledgement to country in Woi-wurrung language. Wangananu nagu Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung Gulan Naganan Tuan Bik, Wenawap Moonee Valley Dari, Wangananu Gaguk Nangit Bambuth Ba Yalambu, Nangit Nagu Nagayan Tabuk Gaguk Nangit Ba Nagwaran Yuong Gulan Magali Yalambu. We now move to item 2 on the agenda, apologies and leave of absence, and I note that Councillor Paula Theocharides is an apology this evening, and that I haven't received any requests for leave of absence. We now move to confirmation of minutes, which is item 3 on the agenda. Councillors, can I have a mover and a seconder that the minutes from the council meeting on the Tuesday the 28th of April 2026 be confirmed? Moved Councillor John Sypek and seconded Councillor Fran Cosgriff. Councillor Sypek, would you like to speak? No, Councillor Cosgriff. Any other councillor like to speak to the motion? No, in which case I will put that to the vote. All those in favour? And that's carried unanimously. Now come to the foreshadowing of conflicts of interest. Does any councillor wish to flag a conflict of interest in any item on the agenda this evening? No? That brings us to the next item on the agenda, which is presentations. Now, we have quite a few presentations this evening. With our monthly meetings, we do accumulate a lot of things throughout the month to talk about. The first presentation that I will give is for WOW Day, which is Wear Orange Wednesday, and that was last Wednesday, May the 20th, which is a national day dedicated to recognising the hard work and commitment of SES volunteers who support our communities during storms, floods and other emergencies. To celebrate the occasion and show our support for our dedicated volunteers, the Clock Tower Centre was lit up in orange on the night of May the 20th. I'd also like to mention that Councillor John Barnes and myself attended the SES Awards night a couple of Fridays ago, and they were very kind in presenting Councillor John Barnes and myself with a certificate of appreciation to Moonee Valley City Council for the support that the council has given, and it's not just monetary support of the recent monetary grant, but also the ongoing partnership with between the officers and the SES that helps keep our community members safe. So thank you very much for that. On a sadder note, I'd also like to talk about the passing of Neil Danaher yesterday, and hence councillors are wearing our Big Freeze hats this evening. Former AFL player of the Essendon Football Club and former coach of Melbourne Football Club, Neil Danaher, was diagnosed with motor neurone disease in 2013 and launched an incredible fight against this insidious disease and had a charity that raised over $115 million for vital research and care programs. In 2021, he was awarded, so deservedly, the Officer of the Order of Australia, and then in 2025 he was named Victorian of the Year and then Australian of the Year, and I don't think anyone could think of any worthier man to take out that enormous honour for the year. The incredible work that Neil did, his determination, his ongoing work to raise funds, and the awareness that he raised for motor neurone disease across Australia. I'm sure there are many people who hadn't heard of it before the Big Freeze became such an event in everyone's calendar. And this year it will be on Monday the 8th of June, and I'm sure there won't be a dry eye at the G. A state funeral will be held at a date to be confirmed, and Council sends our sincere condolences to the Danaher family, friends and colleagues. I'd also like to make a small shout out to the students of Aberfeldy Primary School. On Monday the 11th of May, Councillor Hamish Jones, Councillor Samantha Byrne and myself went along to Aberfeldy Primary School, and we spoke with some incredibly intelligent and inquisitive grade 5s and 6s who asked some really insightful questions. We were so impressed, and we're certain there are some future politicians amongst the cohort of students there. So thanks very much to the principal, teachers and students for a fantastic morning. I'll pass over to other colleagues now before coming back to one final presentation at the end. So are there any other presentations from colleagues this evening? Councillor Phil Byrne.
Thank you, Mayor. I've just got two brief presentations. Today is National Sorry Day, where we acknowledge the strength, courage and resilience of stolen generation survivors and remember the Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander children who were forcibly removed from their families, community and culture due to the policies of previous governments. It also so happens on Friday of last week I actually met a member of the stolen generations, and this person wasn't all that older than myself. So, a day to reflect and consider how we can, move towards a much more just situation in Australia. And also, Mayor, tomorrow marks the beginning of National Reconciliation Week, which runs from the 27th of May through to the 3rd of June. This is an important time for all Australians to reflect on our shared histories, cultures and achievements, and consider how each of us can contribute to reconciliation in meaningful ways. The week spans two significant anniversaries in Australia. 27th of May marks the anniversary of the 1967 referendum, and the 3rd of June marks the anniversary of the Mabo decision, which recognised native title. This year's theme, All In, is a powerful call for all Australians to commit wholeheartedly to reconciliation every single day. All In reminds us that reconciliation is not a spectator sport. It asks each of us to step away from the sidelines and take action through learning, listening, respect and shared responsibility to help create lasting change. Council remains committed to reconciliation and encourages visits to Reconciliation Australia website for more information and resources. Thanks, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Phil Byrne. Would any other councillor like to make a presentation? Councillor Fran Cosgrove, thanks.
Thank you. Council is proud to acknowledge Ida Hobbit Day, the International Day Against Homophobia, Biphobia, Intersexism and Transphobia, on Sunday the 17th of May by flying rainbow flags at prominent locations and intersections across the municipality. Additionally, Mayor, Councillor Dr Rose Isa also joined staff at an event on Wednesday the 13th of May, where we heard from Anastasia Lee, a governance, equity and culture strategist who shared thoughtful insights on inclusion, lived experience and why Ida Hobbit Day is still so important. Council remains committed to promoting inclusion, safety and human rights through visible and meaningful action. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Cosgrove. Would any other councillor like to make a presentation? Councillor Ava Adams.
Thanks, Mayor. During National Volunteer Week from the 18th to the 24th of May 2026, Moonee Valley City Council proudly recognised the volunteers who give so much to our community. This year's theme, Your Year to Volunteer, is a fitting reminder of the important role volunteers play in strengthening community life. Council marked the week through a range of events designed to recognise and celebrate volunteers from across Moonee Valley, including those who contribute through local organisations and sporting clubs. We also heard inspiring stories from local volunteers, including David, who gives just 1 hour a month but makes a meaningful difference. Through our library service, he collects and delivers books to residents who cannot attend in person, and he has also supported learner drivers to gain their licences. Sarah and Andrea also spoke about their experience with the walking school bus, highlighting how easy it is to get involved. Their volunteering supports local students and helps reduce congestion around schools while building a strong sense of connection within the community. We also recognised Rose, who runs ballroom dancing and mahjong each week at Bowes Avenue Community Centre in Airport West. Rose has supported the Bowes Avenue community for 2 years and the wider Moonee Valley community for more than a decade as she continues to create valuable opportunities for people to connect and participate. On behalf of Council, I thank David, Sarah, Andrea, Rose and all volunteers for their generosity, care and community spirit they bring to Moonee Valley. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Adams. Would any other councillor like to make a presentation? Councillor Samantha Byrne, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to pass on a huge congratulations to Essendon Keilor Gymnastics Academy, based in Airport West, on achieving their biggest number of representatives ever selected for the Victorian State Gymnastics team. This is an incredible achievement for the club, with 9 men's gymnasts, 1 female gymnast, 3 coaches and 1 trampoline judge selected. Congratulations to gymnasts Adita, Clarence, Owen, Jeff, Harry, Max, Patrick, Lewis, Flynn as a reserve and Miller, and congratulations also to coaches Sergi, Gunnar and Bell, and to Louisa on her selection as trampoline judge. This is fantastic. We are so proud, and it is a true reflection of the hard work, talent and dedication across the entire academy. Wishing everyone the very best representing Victoria. I hope you have a flipping good time.
Nice pun. Thank you, Councillor Samantha Byrne. And Councillor Hamish Jones, would you like to make a presentation?
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to take a moment to acknowledge the passing of long-time Strathmore resident Tony Hardy, who passed away on the 16th of May after a long battle with cancer. Tony was one of those quiet community builders who gave a great deal over many years, and he did so without seeking recognition. He was a life member of Essendon Apex, heavily involved in the Relay for Life, a member of the St Aidan's Parish Council, and for a long time he also served as the Parish Council representative on the Preschool Parents Committee. But many in Strathmore and Strathmore Heights would also remember Tony for his service to Neighbourhood Watch. He was one of the stalwarts of the Strathmore North and Strathmore Heights Neighbourhood Watch group and served in many roles over many years. At a time when it looked like that group might fold, it was through his determination that it kept going and moved from strength to strength. In his spare time, he also was an avid tennis follower and had a well-loved and read blog on tennis games throughout the world. On behalf of the community, I would like to extend my condolences to Tony's family, friends and all those who knew had worked alongside him.
Thank you, Councillor Hamish Jones. Any other presentations before I finish up? No? So I would just like to finish by recognising the outstanding community contributions, the recipients of our Neighbourhood Spirit Awards. At the citizenship ceremony held at the Clocktower Centre on Monday the 19th of May, we had the pleasure of recognising local residents through our Neighbourhood Spirit Awards. This year, Connecting Mothers in Grief was named Community Organisation of the Year, and Arissa Berryman was named Young Person of the Year, and we extend to them our enormous congratulations. Connecting Mothers in Grief does extraordinary work supporting parents after the loss of a child. Founded by local residents Carol Barak, Karen Schuster and Robin Bardis, the organisation provides compassionate support both locally and more broadly across Victoria and Australia. Arissa Berryman has shown outstanding leadership through her work with Council's Young People's Committee, her advocacy for young people and her commitment to mental health and community participation. We'd also like to congratulate the following recipients whose contributions continue to make a real difference across Moonee Valley: Glenys Barnes, Stephanie Failer, Brian Gillespie, Sam Glenn, Leading Senior Constable Bradley Keogh, Anthony Monteleone, Trang Nguyen, Chantel Abid, Susan Rainey, OAM, Abby Shepherd, and the Victoria State Emergency Service, VIC-SES, Essendon Unit. On behalf of all of us, we extend our sincere congratulations and thanks to all of the recipients for your care, your leadership, your generosity that you show to our community. Thank you. Now that brings us to petitions and joint letters. Councillors, are there any petitions or joint letters that councillors would like to table this evening? Councillor Fran Cosgriff. Thank you.
A joint letter has been received from Moonee Valley Sustainability requesting Council to use the Advocacy Strategy 2026-29 to urgently contact the Department of Transport and Planning, Danny Pearson MP and the Minister for Roads and Road Safety to seek a pause on the proposed removal of up to 20 trees on Woodlands Street until proper process, consultation and assessment of alternative design options have occurred. The letter raises concerns that the proposal conflicts with Council's tree canopy, climate, public space and active transport priorities, and requests greater transparency, community consultation and consideration of alternatives, including traffic calming, safer crossings, bike lanes and retaining the existing trees. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cosgriff. Would anyone else like to... in accordance with Governance Rule 62.5, I refer the joint letter to the CEO for consideration. Councillors, do we have any other petitions or joint letters? In which case that moves us to public question time. And I note that we have no public questions this evening, so that moves us to reports from delegates. Councillors, do we have any reports from delegates this evening? If not, we will move to reports, and before we do so, I might just pop the hatch just over here with all of the other little symbols of the important things that are going on this week and have been going on during the month of May. So we come to our first report for this evening, report 9.1, which is MV/688/2025 at 25 to 29 Keilor Road, Essendon. And we have the officer's recommendation on the screen. So is there a motion, councillors? Councillor Phil Byrne.
Thanks, Mayor. I'd like to move the... Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move the officer's recommendation subject to an amendment. And the motion being that Council resolves to issue a notice of decision to grant a permit in relation to planning permit application number MV/688/2025 at 25 to 29 Keilor Road, Essendon, brackets, land in plan of consolidation 174252B, brackets, for the construction of a multi-storey mixed-use building comprising of a residential aged care facility and retail premises, and display of internally illuminated business identification signage in a built form overlay, brackets BF01, brackets, in accordance with the recommended permit conditions in attachment 1, which are to be amended to include the following point H under condition 1. H, the provision of required services for electric vehicles such as charging points in accordance with clause 18.02-4L of the Moonee Valley Planning Scheme.
Thank you, Councillor Philburn. Is there a seconder? Would anyone like to second? Councillor Fran Cosgriff. Councillor Philburn, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thanks, Mayor. So I support the officer's recommendations with the addition of a condition which is very similar to conditions that officers have recommended going on other developments in Moonee Valley, in particular also developments along Keilor Road. And the change simply ensures that Council's planning policy in the Moonee Valley Planning Scheme is implemented in practice. The planning policy is to locate and design off-street car parking facilities to provide required services for electric vehicles such as charging points, in addition to some other matters there that are not relevant to this amendment. Last month, so in April 2026, electric vehicle sales made up 16.4% of all new vehicle sales, roughly 1 in every 6 new cars sold. Given this development is a few years away from being occupied, if it goes through to full approval, and when occupied, will be occupied for a very long time, it'll be important for the building to be able to easily ensure that future residents have access to EV charging. The additional condition simply enables officers and the proponent to work out the best arrangements for this particular building, noting its mixed-use nature. Thanks, Mayor.
Thanks very much, Councillor Philburn. Councillor Fran Cosgriff, would you like to speak to the item?
Thanks, Mayor. Happy to support largely the officer's recommendation with the addition of the electric vehicle charging. It's a very familiar site on Keilor Road for many of us, and there's been much more ambitious proposals in the past, and I think this strikes a nice balance in providing a residential aged care facility, which of course is something of community value, and it's largely, the bulk is largely in keeping with what we have there. It's going to be, of course, as we increase densification and other things, it's always really tricky, and change is tricky, and but Keilor Road is one of our prime transport corridors with really great facilities around it. And so I think it's a good use of that space. So happy to support. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Cosgriff. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? I saw Councillor Adams' hand first, but Councillor Syphic?
That's right. No, that's right. Please.
I was only because I was looking that way.
Please.
Sorry. I do apologise. It's quite hard to see whose hand goes up first. I'm sorry. Councillor Ava Adams.
Thanks, Mayor. This application is for a residential 7-storey, 167-bed aged care facility with retail shops on the ground level fronting Keilor Road. It's in a desirable location for an aged care facility, being located close to transport and plenty of shops. A previous 11-storey development application that was refused by council and upheld at VCAT at this site included a wall on the boundary for the full length of the building, which wouldn't have been ideal. Since then, there have been significant changes to the planning scheme since the previous application was considered. So I'm pleased that this current application we are considering includes a 2 metre setback from the west elevation at the ground floor and setbacks at the upper levels, therefore providing greater separation between the buildings than the previous application. and makes for a better outcome given its vastly different built form in terms of its height, setbacks and bulk. Regarding the EV addition, I'm supportive of that amendment. I note that there is no requirement specified in the Moonee Valley Planning Scheme for the provision of electric vehicle facilities, but it is encouraged by the scheme. So happy to support this inclusion, as EV chargers, we know, are in high demand in apartment buildings, and they are hugely expensive to retrofit once buildings are built. So happy to support the motion on the floor. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Adams. Councillor Sypek.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm still 50-50 on this one, so I just want to hear what my colleagues say about this one. I fully support aged care facility. I partially support the EV. I don't think that we should enforce that. I think that will just come naturally as residents move in. They'll go to body corporate and they'll say, hey, we need to install EVs now that we've got a majority. So I just think that will be a natural progression. So I'm sort of 50-50 on that one too. But what I'm most concerned about is the overlooking. There are a couple of windows there that I would have loved to have put into this motion, but it's just running a little bit late, to obscure some windows. And I just hope that the developer can listen to this and just sort of, they're windows, they'll still allow light in, but it'll be obscured and some of the neighbours will feel a lot more comfortable with that. So I know I can't put it in as an amendment, but I can talk about it, and hopefully someone can listen to it and actually maybe just put those little extra bits and pieces in. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Sypek. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Look, given that Councillor Sypek expressed some uncertainty, I'll offer Councillor Phil Byrne a right of reply if you'd like one.
Thanks, Mayor. And very much appreciate the comments of Councillor Sypek, and I tend to agree with them, and that's really the aim of the amendment. It's not compulsory. It's not thou shalt have a charger at every car space provided. It's very much open for discussions between officers and the proponent to get that mix right. But the really important thing, to Councillor Sypek's point, is to enable residents to be able to go and have that discussion with the body corporate. The provision of space within switchboards, electrical conduits, those sorts of things is the key important thing to be built into a building at this stage. So so hopefully that when residents do need to sort of make that change, if that's what they want to do, there's the ability to do that. Thanks, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Phil Byrne. So I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? Councillor Ava Adams, Councillor John Barnes, Councillor Phil Byrne, Councillor Fran Cosgriff, Councillor Hamish Jones, Councillor Rose Isa. All those against, Councillor Samantha Byrne and Councillor John Sypek. That motion is carried. That brings us to 9.2, which is the adoption of the Customer Charter and Complaints Management Policy. So the officer's recommendation for this one is on the screen. Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Fran Cosgriff.
I'd like to move the officer's recommendation with an amendment, please. Thank you. That Council resolves to 1. Adopt the Customer Charter, brackets attachment 1. 2. Adopt the Complaints Management Policy, in brackets attachment 2, with the following changes. A. Add to CEO responsibilities on page 11. inform the Council of thematic complaint issues that may warrant reviews of its policy position. B, add to Councillors' responsibilities on page 12, review Council policies as appropriate to address issues identified through complaints data. 3, note the Customer Charter and Complaints Policy Community Consultation. And 4, request the CEO bring a future report to Council considering processes for reviewing and analysing complaints data to identify issues that may need to be addressed through reviews of Council policies.
Thank you very much, Councillor Cosgriff. Is there a seconder for this motion? Councillor Ava Adams, thank you. Councillor Cosgriff, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you. So this Customer Charter and Complaints Policy Management Policy is part of an effort for kind of iterative and continued improvement that we're undertaking at Council, and I really welcome it. Both of the documents have been reviewed extensively, and they seek to ensure that clear expectations regarding customer interactions and experience are set out for the staff at Mini Valley, for councillors, and of course, most importantly, for the community. How we handle incoming requests from residents is obviously a very key function and a very important role to all of us here at Council. And we know we can do better and are striving to, but it's also something that I think causes some of the most tension or challenges when it comes to the separation of roles between our duties as a councillor versus the kind of operational duties of the council. Certainly as a councillor you get approached with lots of really gritty problems that have often been through the operations of council and feel like they've gotten lost and other things, which is what we're trying to address. But this amendment really speaks to the fact that we're not quite there yet. We're still working on it, which are conversations that we have ongoing. And as we implement this process, to see if we can identify some of the really gritty issues that come up and act on them, not just know that they're there, but then for it to trigger something that we review a policy if relevant or otherwise. I think that was all. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Cosgriff. Councillor Adams, would you like to speak to the motion? No trouble, thank you. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Phil Byrne.
Thanks, Mayor. Not a lot to add from Councillor Cosgriff's points before, but I think the addition of these points into the policy really helps, I guess, reflect the governance role and oversight role that council has. As it was flagged, we get lots of complaints. We do get the odd compliment too, as well, and we also get lots of service requests. All of these things are, well, not all, but the vast majority are operational in nature and don't warrant our involvement, and we shouldn't be involved in those at all. It would be a very different environment if we did. However, to be able to look at emerging trends, themes, data, to see if that has any bearings on policy or governance matters, I think is an important and helpful addition to the recommendation. Thanks, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Phil Byrne. Would any other councillor like to speak? Councillor Hamish Jones.
Thank you, Mayor. Just briefly, I will be supporting this recommendation with the proposed amendments. I think the adoption of a customer charter and complaints management policy is incredibly important and fits in well with our council theme of trusted, and it's something that we are striving towards. They're practical documents showing how residents, ratepayers, businesses and community members interact with council and what they can expect from us when they contact us as well. Often people are coming to council with something that's frustrating, confusing, and usually always deeply personal, and the way we respond shapes trust in the whole organisation. I think that these documents go well in terms of making these expectations clearer in terms of service standards, timeframes, complaint pathways, and they also set out clear roles and expectations for officers, councillors and the CEO as well. I think that it's also important to note the inclusion of safety and respectful behaviour provisions. We should all be accessible and accountable, but we also deserve to be free from threatening, abusive and unsafe conduct in doing our role. The balance is important, though we can't take that too far. Residents do have a right to complain, they have a right to challenge decisions, and also to be persistent when they feel unheard. But there needs to be a fair process for managing that behaviour if it becomes unsafe and unreasonable. I think the real test, though, is implementation. So the documents can't just sit on a website, they need to be understood and they need to be tested, and that's why I'm happy to support these amendments. I think they help us to do that. So yes, I'm happy to support the officer's recommendation with the proposed amendments.
Thanks, Councillor Hamish-Jones. Any other councillor like to speak to this motion? No, everyone's very supportive, so I will put that to the vote without a right of reply. So all those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. That brings us to the next report, which is item 9.3, endorsement of the service model of curbside glass. The officer's recommendation is on the screen. Is there a motion? Councillor Phil Byrne.
Thanks, Mayor. I'd like to move an alternative motion. And just a point of clarification, I assume I've got to take it all the way from the top being an alternative, or can we take the...
I think just any paragraph that's got changes in it.
Thanks, Mayor.
Just reference paragraphs that are remaining the same.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. So the alternative motion keeps paragraph 1 as read on the screen, and amends paragraph 2 to read endorse a bi-monthly collection, brackets, collection every second month, brackets, glass curbside recycling bin, brackets, 120 litre size, brackets, collection service model ready for implementation to comply with the state government requirements as approved by Council on the 9th of December, minute number CM 2025/139, with paragraphs 3, 4 and 5 as read in the officer's recommendation. Thanks, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Byrne. I think you just forgot to read 2025 after 9th of December, so just confirming that.
Beg your pardon, 9th of December 2025.
Thanks very much. Is there a seconder for that motion? Councillor Cosgriff? Councillor Phil Byrne, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thanks, Mayor. Just briefly, the changes are reasonably small, but they're important changes to the officer's report to ensure that the earlier positions of council, namely the award of the contract in December 2025 year, continue to fully implement the rollout rather than pause a significant proportion of the rollout for a future point in time. The wording changes also put it beyond doubt that council will comply with the requirements of the legislation that are in place. I'd also like to acknowledge the community who provided feedback on the service delivery, and also what stood out to me was that it's clear that the community is not anti-recycling, but I also note that service delivery is a very important question too. Question that they have. What also stood out was almost 1 in every 3 people in Moonee Valley are already supportive of the new glass bins without any further education or community awareness work. The problem that the rollout is trying to fix is that Australia and Victoria are very high waste generating, and we've had very low quality recycling streams. If people can remember a few years ago, the nappy being held up in what was supposed to be clean recycling that was shipped overseas. And since then, there's been a lot of efforts to establish local supply chains, local businesses. There's been a lot of engagement with glass users of the raw product and other recycled products as well. The challenges here is that the mixed recycling has a greater chance of contamination. The glass breaks and contaminates the cardboard and paper streams, reducing recyclability. A cleaner glass stream has essentially a better quality output. This is all about enabling the circular economy. Reusing things, and it's important to remember that this is not really in my view, and I don't think it's the intent of the new approach that it's a one or the other. It's a number of elements which all come together to work together, and that being the container deposit scheme, that being the food and organic waste, the landfill, and the future glass bin as well. So this is a system-wide reform. There's a lot of other stakeholders in the mix that aren't just councils and who picks up the waste. And let's not forget the objectives of a council plan being a city that rethinks waste and that reduces landfill and improves recycling outcomes. And we keep hearing that we at some point are going to move to burning our landfill waste as well, which I don't think is a good outcome either. So this is part of a broader shift towards circular economy. We do generate too much waste, and improving recycling streams is necessary, and separating glass is an important part of improving the quality of recycling. But importantly, we've resolved to get on with it in December, and we've provided funds to get on with it since December, and our council plan requires it. Thanks, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Philburn. Councillor Cosgrove.
Thank you. I said earlier that no one's ever comfortable with change, really, and this is one of those changes that we really have to hasten making in terms of being a more sustainable community and society in Victoria. As Councillor Burns said, it's part of the Circular Economy Act, which is to that end. We need to, in every possible way, we need to be looking at how we can reduce what goes into landfill, what gets contaminated in our recycling so that it can be properly recycled, and of course what we can reduce from going into recycling in the first place. So I support the alternative motion with the intention that we comply with the legislative requirement to get going with these changes to make our community as effectively sustainable as we can be. Beyond, I guess, that amendment, which to me is really, alternative, which is about ensuring that we comply with our responsibilities. while recognising that there are other parties to this piece of work. But beyond that, I really it was really heartening to read the community support of the centralised drop-off points and the understanding of the need to recycle. And I just as a kind of custodian of this council and organisation, I would be deeply uncomfortable if we didn't comply with our legislative requirement in this, as we did in December when we approved the contract for the rollout of the bins. That's all.
Thanks, Councillor Cosgrove. Would any other councillor like to speak? Councillor Sypek.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a lot of concerns about this, and firstly, the biggest word I want to use here is cost shifting. This is a state government initiative. Why aren't we using the landfill levy money to buy these bins and to roll these bins out? Why is the ratepayer going to have to pay for state legislation? This is not a requirement of Moonee Valley, it's a requirement of the state government. Now, if the state government want this, the state government should pay for it. That's what I think. But I could be wrong. The other thing is, I heard Councillor Byrne say that less than 1 in 3 people support this in Moonee Valley. I think One Nation's got a better approval rating than these purple bins. So I can't see how 2/3 of our community don't want this bin. They don't want to use it. We have a container deposit scheme where people are recycling. They are doing the right thing. And for me, I would rather see smaller deposit container units at, like, let's say at local sporting clubs. In the old days, we used to have scout halls who used to collect the glass, and they used to get a small income out of it. I think if we had these container deposits at some of our local sporting clubs, this would be a great initiative where we could have an alternative source of revenue to support our local clubs, support grassroots, support children in sports. And the other thing is, why are we jumping the gun? Why aren't we waiting until this is gazetted and then go ahead with it? I think we're putting the cart before the horse here, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor John Sypek. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Hamish Jones.
Thank you, Mayor. I won't be supporting the motion that's currently before us, and I would like to flag that I will be moving the officer's recommendation if this motion is defeated. I do support the officer's recommendation. I think I want to first make comment on the community consultation that's gone out there. The consultation report had well over 1,000 people participate and respond, and it showed that over 60% of people said they did not have enough space to store this bin, and nearly 60% said they did have not enough space on the curb to put the bin out when it is to be collected. I don't think we can dismiss this feedback, but we do need to recognise broader policy and compliance environment. The state government has said that this reform is coming, and they do want to move towards a 4-stream waste system, so we need to have some level of movement towards there, but I don't think we can just move at this sort of speed given some of the other issues that are there. I want to acknowledge that this is not just a Moonee Valley issue. The officer report notes that there is broader community sentiment about curbside glass outside Moonee Valley, and it has achieved statewide media attention. There's a joint advocacy group of well over 30 metropolitan and regional councils that are advocating to the state government for changes in their current approach. This advocacy includes removing the compulsory curbside glass requirement, expanding the container deposit scheme to include wine, spirit and other recyclable glass, and they're calling on the state government to release the cost-benefit analysis of this curbside glass collection, and at a minimum they want to delay the current 1st of July 2027 implementation date. Given the size of, I note that Moonee Valley is not part of this advocacy group, but the fact that there are more than 30 councils involved show that it is a genuine sector-wide implementation issue and not just local resistance, and I think we need to acknowledge that. That's why I think the officer's recommendation is a reasonable middle path. It allows us to plan, it allows us to move towards things like the community drop-off points, whilst also preparing for compliance, whilst delaying the large-scale rollout of these bins until the Minister finalises service standards and we ensure there are no material changes to what we would be preparing for if we were to move ahead straight away. So we can't ignore the concerns of the community or other council, and I think that the office's recommendation, if we were to move that instead, would balance the approach of ensuring our compliance whilst also recognising community feedback. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Jones. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor John Barnes.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll make this short. I won't be supporting this motion. Several reasons. Another bin's just mind-boggling for me. I have a scooter. I drive around my ward constantly and look at sites, and I see a lot of units and I see no space inside those units. And people I talk to have the same issues. I work at another site, and I've asked people in the people where I work, and some people have said to me, as long as these purple bins have been rolled out, that they have never used the purple bin. So to me it looks like it might be a little bit of wasted money at this time. If we need to use it later on, so be it. But a little bit with Councillor Sypek, I think it's a state issue, and I think we should be worrying about our own front yard. And it's a big concern that we have to have 4 bins these days. Next we'll have 5, then we'll have 6 for clothes, and we'll have 7 for shoes, and 8 for hats, and 9 for something else. So eventually it's just going to get out of control. That's just my 5 cents worth. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor John Barnes. Would any other councillor like to speak to this motion? Councillor Samantha Byrne.
Thank you, Mayor. I will. And it's actually a really difficult one, this report, because we're being asked by the state government to implement a 4th bin, being the purple bin for glass. However, so as a council, we obviously decided that we wanted to do as we're told by the state government. And then in December last year, we said we'll be going ahead with it as per the what is on the board. But I think in December we were expecting, or at least I was definitely expecting, that we would have the household waste and recycling service standards by now. And if we had them by now, we would be able to make an informed decision on how we implement these purple bins. They were expected by 2024. We didn't have them in 2025 when this last came to the chamber. And now we're sitting here in May of 2026 without having these service standards. So I cannot understand how we can make a $3 million commitment, financial commitment on these bins when we don't know the exact parameters that we're working with. We had so much community input into this survey. I would say it would be one of the highest that we've ever had on the Your Say page, and people contacting us. So there is great community interest in this. We want to do what's right, but we also don't want to jump the gun on this. What came through very clear to me was people weren't necessarily anti-recycling. As was mentioned prior, the centralised drop-off points have been quite effective, and people quite like them. So if there is an option that we can keep it to the centralised drop-off points, that is something that we'll have to seriously consider. But we don't know if that is an option yet because we don't have the service standards. So no, I'm not willing to be spending ratepayer dollars on implementing something earlier than we potentially have to. I do not think we will get in trouble by not ordering bins now when it's actually the state government that haven't put forward these service standards. Mayor, can I just confirm that I think Councillor Jones foreshadowed a motion, is that correct? Yes, so I won't be supporting this, and I will potentially have more to say soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Byrne. Councillor Adams, would you like to speak to the motion?
I will, thanks, Mayor. This one's a difficult one for me too. I understand the arguments being made that council should proceed immediately with rolling out bins to every household in anticipation of the final standards. At the moment, those standards are still in draft form. So if we proceed now and the Minister alters the standards, whether around exemptions for high density areas, collection frequency, contamination requirements or service delivery expectations, I'd be worried we could end up with multiple changes, duplicating costs or redesigning the service after rollout. So I'm more comfortable with waiting for the standards to be finalised. So I think I won't be supporting this motion, and think it's more prudent for us to stage an approach that will mitigate the risks while still ensuring council is prepared to comply with the legislation. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Adams. Councillor Philburn, would you like a right of reply?
Thanks, Mayor. I will. Just wondering where to start. I think I might just start with the community response, which was significant, and picking through all of that, I land on feedback about really not about opposing recycling, but having a system that works in practice for people. I didn't, and I certainly hope it hasn't been read that is somehow dismissive of the engagement that and the responses that we got back. It certainly wasn't. I picked up through my analysis of that it was very much around a system that works better for people rather than merits of what we're doing. In terms of, so there's, and certainly to pick up about, that's not ignoring the consultation. I'd probably support a textile bin, but we're not here to talk about that. And I think the other sort of 2 points that I want to make is that there's a delay in the standards for whatever reason. I just am not making the link between that delay in the standards and that being some sort of cause not to proceed. We've got the draft standards that we're working towards, so are 30 other councils. To Councillor Jones' point, we're not part of that advocacy group. We've had an opportunity to be involved in that and we're not. But on the 9th of January, we all resolved unanimously to approve the implementation of a curbside glass bin service by 1st of July 2027 to comply with the Act. So I'm not sure what's happened since then and now. And in April, and that I think was last month, we provided $900,000 provision in the draft budget for this. So I'm just a bit lost as to what's happened. No, thanks, man, that's fine.
Thanks, Councillor Philburn. I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? It's Councillor Fran Cosgriff, Councillor Philburn, Councillor Rose Isa. All those against? Councillor Hamish Jones, Councillor John Sypek, Councillor Ava Adams, Councillor John Barnes, Councillor Samantha Byrne. That motion is lost. There was a motion foreshadowed by Councillor Hamish Jones.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move the officer's recommendation for report 9.3.
Thanks, Councillor Jones. Is there a seconder? Councillor Samantha Byrne. Would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor. I feel I would be repeating myself if I did speak to the motion. My points stand as they did when I was speaking about it previously.
Thanks, Councillor Jones. Councillor Samantha Byrne.
Thank you, Mayor. I will. I might start by saying that for anybody who has a chance to, I would strongly recommend going onto the website, having a look at the council meeting, going into the attachments and having a look at the community consultation report, because it is 131 pages of really detailed community consultation. And I learnt a lot from this community consultation, and there were arguments for and against. And one of the one of the submitters was from Moonee Valley Sustainability, and it's very detailed and it spoke about a lot of things. But I just wanted to read out their recommendation, and just keep in mind that this is Moonee Valley Sustainability, which is a fairly well respected group of people who quite often put their environment first when they're trying to advocate on lots of issues. They have said, under recommendation, a flexible, customised, constructive model where everyone has access to a glass recycling bin, but not everyone has one. A singular uniform rollout of purple curbside bins to all households is unlikely to deliver the most effective or efficient outcomes for glass recycling, reuse and waste reduction. Such an approach is costly and does not adequately account for the diversity of housing types, space constraints and resident behaviours across the municipality, nor the inherent value and use of glass bottles and containers prior to them being recycled or wasted. As I mentioned, it is quite a long submission, and there are other submissions, and I would urge people to have a look at this feedback and the other feedback that is included on our website. This is difficult, and I think that, as I mentioned before, people are not anti-recycling. We just want to get this right. And in response to what was the closing statement before, I think that the not having the service standards that we were expecting has absolutely changed our timelines for this. We have been waiting for them, and we cannot be spending millions of dollars of ratepayer money on a draft service standards. I'm not comfortable with that, and therefore I'm glad that we've reverted back to the officer's recommendation, where we won't be making rash decisions that we don't have to. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Samantha Byrne. And although it might seem small, I will just say that the consultation report is not 131 pages long. It's 51 pages long, so people perhaps don't have to read quite so much.
My apologies, that was the entire attachment.
Thank you. Just my capacity to remember numbers quite well. Would anyone else like to speak? Councillor Ava Adams.
Thanks, Mayor. I will support the officer recommendation because I believe it's a prudent way forward for council. This is ultimately about balancing three things: our legal obligations under state government legislation, the expectations of our community and responsible financial management. Under the Circular Economy Act, councils are expected to move toward a 4-bin waste system, including a separate glass recycling service. However, that final service standards from the Minister still have not been gazetted, and that uncertainty creates a risk. What officers are recommending is, I believe, a measured approach. The recommendation allows us to expand community glass drop-off points in high-density areas, continue education and engagement, and be implementation ready once the state government finalises the standards. I think that is sensible. The recommendation considers operational data, trial outcomes, benchmarking from other councils and community feedback. Importantly, the trial drop-off sites were successful, which is great to hear. They had strong utilisation, low contamination rates and positive resident feedback. I'd also like to see the container deposit scheme expanded to accept recyclable glass to align with other states. Our current CDS drop-off locations are highly utilised, and I think it's a great initiative. The community consultation referred to also highlighted some key realities. Many residents don't support an additional bin. Many households simply don't have the room for a 4th bin, and there are legitimate concerns about cost and practicality. This approach acknowledges these concerns while still ensuring council continues to meet its obligations under the legislation. I also support the proposed bi-monthly collection model. The evidence provided shows that monthly collections would significantly increase costs without corresponding usage levels, with data from other councils showing relatively low presentation and fullness rates for glass bins. If substantive changes are made by the state, council will receive a further report before implementation proceeds. For these reasons, I'll be supporting the officer recommendation. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Adams. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor John Sypek.
Thank you, Mayor. This time last year, I was lucky enough to be in Europe, and that's where I noticed one thing with recycling that's done really, really well over there. They have container deposits virtually everywhere, and they've got them at train stations, they've got them at clubs, whether it's soccer, football, whatever it is, and they also have them at the supermarkets. And I asked my relatives over there, I said, why are there so many machines everywhere and how do you know where to put them? And they said they did a survey at certain railway stations. A lot of bottles get just thrown into the rubbish bin and they can never be captured. So they have these container deposits at like, let's say Flinders Street or Spencer Street, or end routes at certain train stations. But the best idea that I got told is when they go shopping, they bring their recyclable bags, 4 or 5 of them, empty. They used to bring them empty to the shops. Now they bring them full of bottles that they go to their IGA or their Aldi or Lido, whichever the shopping centre is, and they empty their 5 shopping bags, and they can either get a voucher or they can get it straight into their accounts, or they can transfer it to any club or any other institution that they want, or a donation to like Red Cross or whatever. And then they have 5 empty shopping bags they can go shopping with. And I thought, that's just such a great idea, and that would encourage people rather than just being out in the public and just throwing their recyclable bottles in the rubbish bin, which then goes to landfill. It doesn't get filtrated out. But this way it could be collected. So we'd probably be actually collecting more, and would actually make people want to bring and store their bottles and take them to the shopping centres or to their sporting clubs to support whatever they want to do. So like I said, I know it's coming, but I think we shouldn't be jumping the gun, and I totally agree. Let's wait for the government to make the standards 100%, and more than happy to support it.
Thanks, Councillor John Sypek. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? In which case, I will put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? That is Councillor Ava Adams, Councillor John Barnes, Councillor Phil Byrne, Councillor Samantha Byrne, Councillor Hamish Jones, Councillor John Sypek. All those against? Councillor Fran Cosgrove and Councillor Rose Isa. That motion is carried. Which brings us to 9.4 of the agenda, place naming project, renaming sections of Aspen Street, Moonee Ponds, community engagement. We have the officer's recommendation on the screen. Do I have a motion? Councillor Ava Adams.
Thanks, Mayor. I'll move the officer's recommendation, please.
Great. And do we have a seconder? Councillor Fran Cosgrove, thank you. Councillor Ava Adams, would you like to speak to the motion?
I will, thank you, Mayor. This motion commences a long-awaited place naming process initiated by our community to rename 2 sections of Aspen Street, Moonee Ponds. Aspen Street is located in the Mason Square precinct and is a non-continuous road divided into 3 separate sections. It causes great confusion, particularly for emergency services and Australia Post. Officers completed an initial community engagement process from the 20th of February to the 27th of March this year, inviting the community to submit naming suggestions for the 2 sections of road to be renamed to comply with the naming rules for Places in Victoria 2022. There are lots of naming rules we need to comply with, so following engagement with the Essendon Historical Society, Wurundjeri Wurrung Heritage Corporation, Moonee Ponds Traders Association and the Owners Corporation of the Mason Square Apartments, 2 names for each road section have been shortlisted for formal community engagement and vote. The proposed names are Bagar, which means centre in Wurrung language, Catherine, after Catherine Knitwear, a former business in Aspen Street, Moonee Ponds, Mernda, meaning deliver in Woiwurrung language, and Marion, after Marion Marnie Griffin, an architect and artist known for co-designing Moonee Valley's Incinerator Gallery. Following this engagement, a report will come back to Council for us to formally adopt the new street names of 2 sections of Aspen Street, Moonee Ponds. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Adams. Councillor Cosgriff, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you. It is certainly a really valuable change. It's a very confusing stretch of Moonee Ponds. I just wanted to note as well that this came to us following a petition from residents just to say that they're not something we just read out at the start of the meeting. They do get actioned and can have real impact. So thanks to the community members who pursued it and brought it to our attention. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Cosgriff. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? In which case, I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? And that's carried unanimously. Brings us to 9.5, Biannual Community Grants Report, Financial Year 2025-26, Round 2. Councillors, the officer's recommendation is on the screen. Is there a motion? Councillor Phil Byrne.
Thanks, Mayor. I'd like to move the officer's recommendation with an amendment. The amendment to is that Council resolves to paragraph 1 taken as read, other than capitalising endorse. But with the addition of paragraph 2, which is request officers highlight opportunities for young people to apply for eligible biannual grant streams in the biannual community grants guidelines for the upcoming July 2026 round to support initiatives generated by young people living within the Moonee Valley municipality. Initiatives would seek to strengthen youth engagement and participation, mental health outcomes, and leadership and community recognition amongst Moonee Valley's young people, brackets 12 to 25 years, helping to address strategy 3.4 of Council Plan. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Phil Byrne. Is there a seconder? Councillor Samantha Byrne. Councillor Phil Byrne, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thanks, Mayor. Just briefly, obviously I support the broader officer's recommendations, and obviously congratulations to successful grant recipients, and also to thank you to those who have applied. It's a bit of effort to put in for these sorts of grants, and often it sort of falls on the same few people that put their hand up for lots of things in community organisations and clubs and so forth. So just want to acknowledge that effort that goes in. But really the proposed amendment just ensures that across all of the biennial grant schemes that we really highlighting those opportunities for Moonee Valley's youth. We do hear at various engagements that we have there's often a bit of a perception of a top-down approach to engaging with our young people. Hopefully this is just a small step towards getting some good initiatives to bubble up for Moonee Valley's youth from Moonee Valley's youth. Thanks, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Phil Byrne. Councillor Samantha Byrne.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to everyone who applied for a grant. And this is a friendly reminder to people that didn't apply for a grant that we actually had more money to give out, or that we could have given out. So if you think that you've got no chance of getting grants, I can absolutely guarantee you that you do have a good chance. The application can be on the longer side, because we obviously don't just want to give out money unjustifiedly, but I strongly recommend. We have such a wonderful range of projects that we'll be supporting this grant grant round, including Somali Day, Flemington Cultural Festival, Greek Fest, the 60th anniversary of the East Keilor Cricket Club. There was a few other ones that I'm just going to scroll down to. I don't want to get confused with the wrong list, so I better be mindful, but they are available online in the attachments. Congratulations to everyone who has been successful in their grants, and I'm looking forward to seeing how the money is used for the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Samantha Byrne. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Hamish Jones.
I will be supporting the proposed motion that's before us. Like Councillor Samantha Byrne, I'd like to congratulate all those who have been successful in being recommended for grants. I'd also like to encourage those who may have applied and not been successful this time to make sure that they get feedback on their grant application to see if there are ways they can improve it for future applications that they may put in. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Jones, and apologies, it's a frog in my throat. Would any other councillor like to speak? Councillor Ava Adams.
Thanks, Mayor. Just to, I guess, support like highlighting opportunities for young people. I think that's a really great inclusion. And also to give a shout out, I guess, to the events grants that have been granted. There's some really great trader activations that happen in different, parts of Moonee Valley. I note in Moonee Ponds, there was a Puckle Street Strata Classica, which was a really great event and really activated Puckle Street and surrounding businesses last year. And I'm really pleased to see that they've received a grant because it is in for a really good cause as well. And it was a really popular event. So this just really will help to create more noise and marketing opportunities for the organisers, which is really important for our traders. Also, the Greek Fest in Moonee Valley that's held annually is a really great event. Last year it was completely washed out and rained out. It still went ahead, and it was there was a really great turnout. So I'm really, really pleased to see that we're supporting that event as well in Gladstone Street, Moonee Ponds. And there's many more other events that we're funding as well through the grants. So I'm really, really pleased to see that happening. Thanks, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Adams. Any other councillor like to speak? Councillor John Barnes.
Thank you, Mayor. I wish I was 12 to 25 years of age and had this opportunity. I'd be thinking outside the square and thinking inside of it, because there's some great opportunities there. So if you're listening, watching, or wherever you are, put your head to the book or the steering wheel or grinding wheel and see what you can come up with, because as Councillor Samantha Byrne said, the grants are there, so dig deep. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor John Barnes. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? No? In which case I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? All those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. Which brings us to 9.6, which is Queen's Park Swimming Pool feasibility. Councillors, the officer's recommendation is on the screen. Is there a motion? Councillor Ava Adams.
Thanks, Mayor. I will move the officer's recommendation with an amendment, and I'm just going to see if I can try to find it. Thank you. So the officer's recommendation, as is with points 1 and 2, with an additional point 3, request the Chief Executive Officer provide information on options for capital improvements to improve overall amenity and user experience, such as painting all external building, including the facade and entrance, painting change rooms, replacing / upgrading balustrade to administration level, to inform decision making on the final budget 2026 / 27 and 4-year capital works program. And an additional point 4, note the advocacy strategy 2026 to 29 endorsed by Council on the 28th of April 2026 seeks for funding from other levels of government to deliver upgrades to Queen's Park swimming pool to meet the future needs of the community. Thanks.
Yes, I'm not sure if that 4 should be there. You read the 4, I'm just not 6 for funding. Let's just leave it. It probably...
I can read it again if you like. No?
Fine.
Okay.
No, it's fine.
6 funding, sorry. There shouldn't be a 4 there.
Thanks. Okay.
Thank you.
Let's leave it there. Terrific. Is there a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Philburn. Would you like to speak to the motion, Councillor Adams?
I will, thank you, Mayor. So this report provides a comprehensive feasibility assessment of the future of Queen's Park swimming pool, a facility that has been enjoyed by generations of Moonee Valley residents since 1958 and still is a highly valued community asset. The assessment confirms a number of important points. Firstly, the 50-metre pool itself remains serviceable and in reasonable to good condition. Importantly, it does not require replacement at this stage, and the facility can continue to operate safely at its current standard. Secondly, full redevelopment options were explored, with estimated costs ranging from approximately $29 million to $32 million. Those options included expanded water play, improved accessibility, upgraded filtration, heated water systems, and broader amenity improvements. Unfortunately, a redevelopment of this scale is not currently funded within Council's long-term capital works program, nor within the draft 4-year capital works plan. We will need external funding to deliver major upgrades, so I'm pleased at our last council meeting we endorsed Queen's Park Pool in our 2026 to 29 advocacy strategy. Queen's Park swimming pool is deeply loved and valued by our community. It was no surprise to read that the customer satisfaction survey we did in February of this year showed that patron satisfaction is extremely high, with survey respondents rating the facility more than 8.5 out of 10, and over 9 out of 10 patrons indicated that they intended to return. Many users attend weekly, and the pool continues to play an important role as a seasonal community gathering place. The officer's recommendation is to maintain Queen's Park swimming pool at its current service standard, and I understand and acknowledge that rationale, particularly given the current financial environment and the absence of identified external funding streams for a major redevelopment project. However, I also believe there's a middle ground between a full $30 million redevelopment and doing only minimal maintenance. For that reason, I've requested further information from the CEO regarding potential capital improvement options that could improve the overall amenity and user experience of the facility. This includes practical improvements such as painting all external buildings, including the facade and entrance areas, repainting the change rooms, upgrading or replacing the balustrade to the administration level, which is looking very, very tired, and other modest amenity improvements that may improve presentation, accessibility and user experience without requiring a full redevelopment. I believe this additional information will help inform Council's decision making as we consider the final budget 2026-27 and the 4-year capital works program. Queen's Park swimming pool is clearly a valued community asset, and there are opportunities for targeted investment that maintains community confidence and pride in the facility and improves the experience for users in the short to medium term. I look forward to receiving the additional advice requested from the CEO as part of the upcoming budget deliberations. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Adams. Councillor Philburn, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, support the amendment to the officer's recommendation. Not a lot to add from Councillor Adams other than to thank her for putting forward the amended motion. I certainly agree that it's quite a charming pool. It's an asset that we're very lucky to have, and I think it complements our other health and fitness centres really well, and provides that extra offering. It's certainly a pool that I wouldn't want to see with a roof over it, or that was, you know, as hot as jumping in a bath or something like that. And I think it, I think it's a terrific community asset. And yeah, sort of note that there's a big jump between a range of $29 to $32 million options, and then sort of not doing much at all. So I'd also welcome to see the options that come back for sort of modest improvements to the facility. Thanks, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Philburn. Would any other councillor like to speak? Councillor John Sypek.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm once again 50-50 on this one. I do support the swimming pool to be redeveloped and the facilities to be redeveloped, but the problem that I have is we've got a balanced budget now, and if we now start throwing more money, we're going to be going into the red. The other thing is, over the next 2 years in our long-term capital works, we've got some big decisions to make. Do we do highball? Do we do the Buckley Park Bowls Club? Or do we do this swimming pool? And there are other things that we can do. I just don't think Moonee Valley's got the coin to do all this, and I think we should have a long-term strategy for this. Happy to support the maintenance of it. And I was just wondering, Mayor, if you would be able to separate 3 out of, so combine 1, 2 and 4 and separate 3.
I'll take that into consideration when putting it to the vote. Thanks, Councillor Sypek. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Was that a hand up? Yeah, or a wave at someone? Councillor Samantha Byrne.
I need to work on my hand, sorry. Thank you. Just in response to that, thank you for the feedback around the room. I'm not that concerned about point 3, because I feel that if we were to ask this outside of the council chamber, we would get this information. So I think it's important that as councillors we do have the information required to make informed decisions on our capital works. This isn't putting it into the budget, it's just so we're informed if we want to put it into the budget, is how I'm reading it. And the 4th point's just noting the advocacy strategy, so we've already, that's already been endorsed. I think Queen's Park Pool is really loved. I don't think it's as loved as East Keilor swimming pool, but they're obviously very different. I think that, thanks for the motion, and looking forward to seeing what we do with it going forward. Thanks, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Samantha Byrne. Would any other Councillor Hamish Jones?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm happy to support the proposed motion that's currently before Council. I think, Queen's Park is a much-loved community asset. It's more than just a pool. It's part of many people's history, part of many people's family. It's been used for swimming carnivals, it's used for exercise, and it's just used to hang out in summer for people that are trying to get some respite on a day when it's well and truly above 30 degrees. I think the report shows that the pool is serviceable in its current condition. It makes some suggestions for redevelopment, but they are incredibly expensive, with obviously the options estimated at the tens of millions of dollars. So we do have a trade-off with the budget there. I think it's I don't think anyone would support decommissioning. I think because it is that much loved asset, I would argue that it is much more loved than East Keilor, but I don't want to have that kind of debate in the chamber. I think supporting this recommendation tonight recognises that it's a responsible fiscal step now to make sure the pool is maintained at its current safety and serviceability, whilst also looking at options for smaller improvements outside that multi-million dollar range, and noting that if we want to take it further, that it is in our advocacy strategy if we want to do a bigger redevelopment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Would any other councillor? Councillor John Barnes.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to try not to make you laugh here, but 1986, I was all glistened up with baby oil, sitting around the Queen's Park pool, 35-degree day, working for Moonee Valley Council back in those days, Essendon Council, getting paid to sit there and sunbake. What a pool. It's been an icon of mine for 40 odd years. Be great to see it fixed up within a certain, I suppose, price point, but yeah, I like the motion too. Thank you, Mayor. You're not laughing, so what's wrong?
I've learnt to keep a poker face. Nothing to laugh at. Thank you, Councillor Barnes. Would any other councillors like to speak to the motion? Can I just clarify? Right of reply will go to Councillor Adams, but can I just clarify, Councillor Sypek, were you asking me to split point 3 only? Yeah. Councillor Adams, would you like a right of reply? In which case, I'm happy to put points 1, 2 and 4 to the vote separately to point 3. So perhaps if we vote on point 1, 2 and 4, would all those in favour of point 1, 2 and 4 please indicate? That is carried unanimously. And now I'll put point 3 to the vote. Those in favour of point 3. That is Councillor Ava Adams, Councillor John Barnes, Councillor Phil Byrne, Councillor Samantha Byrne, Councillor Fran Cosgrove, Councillor Hamish Jones, Councillor Rose Isa. All those against point 3, Councillor John Sypek. So the motion in its entirety is carried. Thank you. That brings us to item 9.7, which is the endorsement of the draft tree management policy for community consultation. Councillors, the officer's recommendation is on the screen. Is there a motion? Councillor John Sypek, is there a... Councillor John motion, what is your... Councillor John Sypek, what is your motion?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm happy to move the officer's recommendation.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Phil Byrne. Thank you. Councillor John Sypek, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, Mayor. I just want to first congratulate and thank the officers for a very good report. I actually enjoyed reading this report. I am a great advocate of planting trees, and I've always asked to get more trees planted around sporting fields, because I remember when I was playing footy, many years ago, our oval had these great pine trees, and they were like natural nets. So that oval never had nets. The actual pine tree stopped the balls going through. But it also stopped a lot of circular wind. But look, I like trees. I think canopy improvement in Moonee Valley is fantastic. Yes, we have made a few minor errors in planting a tree in the wrong spot, along on a major road where there's a street coming out, and when the tree grows a little bit, you actually can't see down, so it needs to be pruned, needs to be adjusted. So, like I said, there's only just these are all minor adjustments, but overall, I think we're doing a great job with planting as many trees and increasing our canopy here in Moonee Valley.
Thank you, Councillor Sypek. Councillor Phil Byrne, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thanks, Mayor. Certainly echo the thanks by Councillor Sypek for officers in their work on the policy and getting it ready for public consultation, but also the work that they do for the community and the various views, but also the quite unique circumstance of various requests for services and those sorts of things. So yeah, just briefly, council manages over 100,000 trees, and as we know, it's much broader than just amenity. The trees are essentially critical infrastructure for a growing and a warming city. As we know, the trees deliver urban cooling, health and wellbeing, biodiversity and amenity value as well, and we've got quite ambitious canopy targets of 30%. And yes, I think with the key focus on the policy around retention and replacement, long-term thinking, and balancing the safety and infrastructure impacts as well. And also sort of looking at how some of those impacts can also be managed, but without necessarily the tree removal. Very interested to see how the community consultation goes, given the very strong interest in trees, their selection, their management as well. And also, hopefully, this can ultimately help contribute to a bit more shared understanding of the value of trees, and also reduce some of the conflicts that we see with trees and infrastructure. Thanks, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Phil Byrne. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Hamish Jones.
Thank you, Mayor. I support the officer's recommendation and putting this draft tree management policy out for community consultation. Trees aren't just nice to have, they are part of our community infrastructure, and we should treat them accordingly. They provide shade, reduce heat, support biodiversity, improve streetscapes, make neighbourhoods more livable, and they also have economic value to our community as well. This policy is about how council manages trees across streets, parks, reserves, facilities and council-owned land. I think the key benefit for me from this policy is consistency. Tree decisions can be incredibly emotional and contentious. That's probably the one thing that surprised me the most on getting elected to council, was how many people would contact me about trees. In hindsight, it should have been obvious, but it was a little bit of a surprise beforehand. But I've got questions like, why are trees being removed? Why are trees being planted? Why aren't they not removing trees? So I think, but also questions about how council balances safety, infrastructure and the canopy cover overall. The draft policy will help support council's target of getting to the 30% canopy cover by 2040, and all the stuff that helps in addressing urban heat. But we can't deny that there are trade-offs as well. The wrong trees can conflict with footpaths, roads, drains, power lines, can cause visibility issues, property access and sometimes safety issues as well. So we need a policy that reflects the need to protect canopy whilst allowing practical risk management. So I think consultation is important with the community, and that community consultation, I think it's important to put it out there to help shape this policy further. We know it's something that people care deeply about. They care about their local trees, and we should hear from residents before the final adoption. So I support the recommendation. I think it's the right next step. Put the draft out, listen carefully to the consultation and feedback that we get, and bring back the final policy for endorsement at a future council meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hamish Jones. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? In which case, I'll put that motion to the vote. All those in favour? And that's carried unanimously. And that brings us to item 9.8, which is the endorsement of the draft fraud and corruption control policy for community consultation. Councillors, the officer's recommendation is on the screen. Is there a motion? Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm happy to move the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Councillor Samantha Byrne. Councillor Jones, would you like to speak to the motion?
Just briefly, I obviously support the officer's recommendation. I think it is important that we put the draft fraud and corruption control policy out for community consultation. It's not just governance, it's also an item about trust. The residents need to know that council has clear expectations, clear reporting pathways and controls in place to prevent, detect and respond to any suspected fraud and corruption. I think the policy sets out a zero tolerance approach and identifies responsibilities across the organisation. It connects to other internal controls. And yeah, I support putting this out for consultation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Councillor Samantha-Byrne, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you. This is another incredibly important policy that we're putting out for consultation, so I encourage people at home to please give feedback, because I know this has definitely been something that has been brought up before. So very important, and love to hear what people have to say. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Samantha-Byrne. Would any other councillor like to speak to this one? No? In which case I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? And that's carried unanimously. That brings us to item 9.9, which is the review of councillor internal resolution procedure. Councillors, the officer's recommendation is on the screen. Is there a motion? Councillor Hamish Jones.
I'm happy to move the officer's recommendation.
Thanks. Is there a seconder? Councillor Phil Byrne. Councillor Hamish Jones, would you like to speak to the motion?
Just briefly, thank you, Mayor. I think we get along pretty well as a councillor cohort, but sometimes things can go a bit awry and a bit astray, and it's important that we do have an internal resolution procedure in place to deal with that, hopefully before issues escalate and hit a more formal process. And I'm happy to endorse the officer's recommendation.
Thanks, Councillor Hamish Jones. Councillor Phil Byrne, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, thanks, Mayor.
Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? In which case I'll put that motion to the vote. All those in favour? And that's carried unanimously. That brings us to item 9.10, the awarding of the contract for the construction of the Airport West Kindergarten at 97 McNamara Avenue, Airport West, negotiation number 1104. Councillors, the officer's recommendation is on the screen. Is there a motion? Councillor Samantha-Byrne.
Thank you. I'd like to move the officer's recommendation.
Thanks. Is there a seconder? Councillor John Sypek. Councillor Samantha-Byrne, would you like to speak to the motion?
I will, thank you. This is incredibly exciting. We are hopefully awarding the contract for the construction of the Airport West Kindergarten at 97 McNamara Avenue, Airport West. Currently there is a much loved kindergarten that plenty of people have attended, but it's always been on the smaller side of kindergartens, and now kindergartens can be run so much more efficiently. Following the construction, we'll be up to 99 places, and will also provide, so going from 33 to 99 places, and it will also provide 2 new co-located maternal and child health consulting rooms. This is a part of the Early Years Building Blocks partnership with the Victorian Government, and I'd like to thank the Victorian Government for their support in helping us build many kinders over the past few years. If I can find my list, including Montgomery Park, Lincolnville, Coronation, which is coming, Miliara Gardens, and obviously Airport West, which is the one that we're talking about today. So very exciting and really good for our families in our community. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Samantha-Byrne. Councillor John Sypek, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. When we were a multi-member ward, Councillor Byrne and I were heavily involved with the planning of this facility upgrade. And I just want to commend Councillor Byrne on championing this right through the whole process. I was very pleased to work with her. I don't have children anymore in this age group. I have adult problems now. I don't have children problems. But I'm very, very supportive of this, even though it's not my ward now, but I'm very happy to support it, and I'm very happy that Councillor Byrne has brought it to council and made it a priority for her ward. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor John Sypek. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? In which case I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? And that's carried unanimously. That brings us to item 9.11, Annual Plan 2025-26 and Other Priority Projects Implementation Update Q3 2025-26. Councillors, the officer's recommendation is on the screen. Is there a motion? In which case that item lapses and we move to 9.12. There was a hand, Councillor Fran Cosgriff. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Adams. Would you like to speak to the motion, Councillor Cosgriff?
Thank you, Mayor. This is obviously our quarterly check-in about where we're progressing with our annual plan. Sorry, I was at a different point, but I guess it's good news for the most part, and thanks to officers for their work in getting us to that point. And I'll leave it there. Apologies.
Thanks, Councillor Cosgriff. Councillor Adams.
Thanks, Mayor. As Councillor Cosgriff said, this report provides an update for Q3 on the progress in delivering our 54 priority projects, comprising the 52 initiatives of the 25-26 annual plan and 2 standalone budget major initiatives. I just wanted to highlight a couple of key initiatives during this period. The completion of a mural at Moonee Valley, by Moonee Valley artist Jason Parker at Mason Square, Moonee Ponds in February 2026. It was developed through community workshops. The still life draws on elements that make Moonee Valley unique, with a nod to our marketplaces, communities and local flora. I know that this mural has been championed by the residents of Mason Square and those that sort of walk through that area every day. So it's a really, really welcomed upgrade and change. Also, the textile recycling event that we held at the Moonee Valley Transfer Station in January 2026, over 200 community members attended, which was just fantastic, dropping off just under 4 tonnes of end-of-life textiles. So that event received extremely positive community feedback, which is great to see. And it's great to see that we're on track for a lot of initiatives. So thank you, officers, for all the hard work.
Thanks, Councillor Adams. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? In which case I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? And that's carried unanimously. That brings us to item 9.12, Financial Performance Report and Council Expenses Report, Q3 2025-26. Councillors, the officer's recommendation is on the screen. Is there a motion? Councillor Adams.
Thanks, Mayor. I'll move the officer's recommendation, please.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Jones. Councillor Adams, would you like to speak to the motion?
I will, thanks, Mayor. This report seeks to receive and note the quarterly financial performance report for the period 1st of July 2025 to the 31st of March 2026 and the quarterly council expenses report for the period 1st of January 2026 to the 31st of March 2026. The financial statements included are the operating statement, balance sheet, cash flow statement and capital expenditure. These reports come to us quarterly in accordance with the Local Government Act 2020 and for public accountability and transparency. A couple of items of note are, with the capital works, the final carry forward from 24-25 of 5.7 million, combined with the adopted 25-26 capital budget of 46.1 million, results in a total capital program of $51.8 million for the 25-26 financial year. The annual variance of $5.39 million is predominantly due to the indicative carried forward amount of $5.7 million to 26-27. With regards to the cash and investments, the year-to-date favourable variance is due to the higher opening cash position at the beginning of the financial year of $19.8 million and timing differences in cash flows from operating activities. The year-to-date debt levels balance reflects the remaining funds from the $10 million loan received in June 2021. The annual forecast reduction of $2.6 million relates to a council resolution to reduce the 24-25 carried over borrowing amount from $35.2 million to $32.6 million. With regards to the rates receivable, the figures relate to the amount of rates owing and reduces when the quarterly rate amounts are due and payable. So there are timing differences in receivables. At the end of the 24-25 financial year, debtors were $20.4 million, which reflects an increase of 12.7% on 23-24. Since the start of this financial year, 1,621 ratepayers have applied for payment arrangements, which reflects ratepayers' increasing preference for paying in instalments versus making upfront lump sum payments. In summary, the quarterly finance performance report for the 9 months ended 31 March 2026 indicates that Council's overall financial position as forecasted for the year ending 30 June 2026 is sound. Thank you to our CEO and finance team for managing our accounts with such diligence and strong fiscal responsibility. It means that during our upcoming budget discussions, we are able to continue finding ways we can support cost of living relief for vulnerable members of our community. This motion also resolves to note council expenses incurred for the period between 1st of January and the 31st of March 2026, which is important for transparency and accountability and will be published on Council's website following the meeting if the motion is carried. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Adams. Councillor Jones, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, thank you.
Any other councillor like to speak to the motion? In which case I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? And that's carried unanimously. That brings us to item 9.13, Capital Works Performance Report Q3 2025-26. Councillors, the officer's recommendation is on the screen. Is there a motion? Councillor Cosgrove.
I'd like to move an amendment to the officer's recommendation, please. So it is the officer's recommendation for points 1 through 4, then an additional point 5 that reads, note that some projects listed as on hold in attachment 1, section 6, have been included in the council resolution for the draft budget 2026-27 for community consultation, minute number CM 2026/26, to be finalised at the adoption of the budget 2026-27 and the 4-year capital works budget adoption. And then point 6, as per the officer's recommendation, but renumbered. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Cosgrove. Is there a seconder? Councillor Adams. Councillor Cosgrove, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you. This is always a really lovely report to get. It's all the things that have been, the projects that have been completed, the things that you see getting improved and being built around the community. And the report that officers give to us is really a really thorough kind of tracking of how we're going on those, really transparent. I always marvel at how they convey all of that information, which is much more complex than it looks in the report, for the community, so that you know exactly where we're up to with the commitments we've made. And you can also look through and see all the lovely pictures of completions, which includes quite a number of road works, road upgrades. I think we had some new furniture put in at East Keilor. Sorry, I've lost my words tonight. Pool, new playground at Ashcantsea Reserve, and a whole bunch of other things. But to the amendment, which is just to note that The Cliff Ellison Reserve Master Plan, which has sort of been something that we've tried to put into previous versions of the budget or the Capital Works program to have some upgrades done there, but we haven't really had any results from, or we haven't, for a number of reasons, it's kind of been delayed, and so it's been noted as on hold for this year, but we have flagged it in the draft budget that we passed last month, and so that's just highlighting that, and that I hope to see it back into the program for next year. Yeah, I'll leave it there. Thanks, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Cosgrove. Councillor Adams, would you like to speak to the motion? Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? In which case I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? And that is all those in favour, and that is carried unanimously. That brings us to 9.14, item 9.14, Work, Health and Safety Report, Q3 2025-26. Councillors, the officer's recommendation is on the screen. Is there a motion? Councillor Jones?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm happy to move the officer's recommendation.
Thanks, Councillor Jones. Is there a seconder? Councillor Ava Adams. Councillor Jones, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor. Just briefly, workplace health and safety is a core governance responsibility, so as a council we need to provide safe systems of work for staff, contractors, volunteers and councillors, and we also need to understand the risks that everyone has in these environments. This report rates council's position as amber and stable, and we are working on a pathway towards green. I appreciate the report does not present safety as a finished task. It's something that's ongoing and there's always work to do, including on psychosocial hazards. Psychosocial safety is particularly important at a local government level. Staff and councillors can face high pressure interactions, emotionally charged issues, aggressive behaviour, workload pressure and constant public scrutiny. I also note that the report notes that work cover premium impacts can take time to show improvement because premiums are based on multiple years of claim experience. I support this report because it keeps workplace health and safety visible at a council level as well as in the community. It can not just be an internal HR issue, it's a leadership and governance issue. Identifying these risks and working these risks enables us as an organisation to better serve the community. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Jones. Councillor Adams, would you like to speak to the motion? Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Sypek.
Thank you, Mayor. And once again, I had quite pleasure reading this report, and I once again want to commend the officers on doing such a great job to making this report very transparent and very easy to read, and it just makes sense. It's a good report. Like I said, in my 20 years on council, I think this is probably in my top 3. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Sypek. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Phil Byrne.
Thanks, Mayor. Nothing too much to add than what was mentioned before, but just I guess there's and I think Councillor Jones touched on this a bit, but there's a safety culture which needs to align with policies like this one, and certainly from what I've experienced, that is very much in place here as well. People shouldn't be injured at work. I do note in the report there seems to be a bit of a drop-off in the reporting of near misses, which is neither, and I say that without that being critical either way. It could reflect a lack of reporting of things that should be reported, or it could demonstrate safety improvements. But I think it's a very good parameter to have and to keep encouraging the reporting of near misses, because it's a very fine line between a near miss and an incident. The near miss is an incident, I guess, in that sense. So just encouraged the focus on on continued safety and continued improvement. Thanks, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Phil Byrne. Any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Samantha Byrne.
Thanks, Mayor. This obviously councillors are quite interested in this report, and I think it's because it's quite an important report, as Councillor Sypek mentioned, and quite a good read. I just wanted to flag that I found the traffic light system quite good in this one, which made things, basically told us, you know, there was the red, which is outside risk appetite, and amber within risk appetite, and green within risk appetite, and no indication of escalating concerns. And there's some words in here about the pathway to green and how we want to get to green, and I think that's a really nice sort of visual representation of it. So I'm glad that there's so much work going into this, and I thought that it was a good read, and whilst we are on that pathway to green, we are doing fairly well in this space. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Samantha Byrne. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? In which case, I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? And that's carried unanimously. Brings us to notices of motion. We have none on the agenda. Brings us to urgent business. I don't believe we have any urgent business this evening. That brings us to confidential items. Now we have 2 confidential items on the agenda this evening. The motion to close the meeting to the public pursuant to section 66(2) of the Local Government Act 2020 to consider the confidential items 12.1 Homes Victoria matter and 12.2 Property matter Ascot Vale is displayed on the screen. There was some confusion last time about this from councillors, so this is the motion that's before us. So is there a mover for this motion? Councillor Adams. Is there a seconder for this motion? Councillor Phil Byrne. Councillor Adams, would you like to speak to the motion? Councillor Phil Byrne, would you like to speak to the motion?
Just very briefly, Mayor. Support the confidential items being heard in a confidential setting. I think, obviously, as a default position, you know, maximum transparency I think is always preferred. But and I think there's sometimes a pretty fine line between what may move something into a confidential setting compared to an open setting. Obviously, where we are with gender and papers on these matters, I'd support it being heard confidentially. But I think at some point it'd be good to get a bit more sort of clarification as to where categories are fully met and so forth on certain items. Thanks, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Phil Byrne. Would any other councillor like to speak to the item? In which case I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? That's Councillor Ava Adams, Councillor John Barnes, Councillor Phil Byrne, Councillor Samantha Byrne, Councillor Fran Cosgrove, Councillor Hamish Jones, Councillor John Sypek, and against Councillor Rose Isa. That has been carried, that motion, which means that this is where we leave, say goodnight to the public, say goodnight to those watching via the live stream and to those in the chamber this evening. Our next council meeting will be held on Monday the 29th of June 2026, and we look forward to seeing you all then, and I declare this meeting closed at 8:35 p.m. Thanks very much.